What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Corvette Weekly. Welcome back to the show that is everything and anything Corvette. And of course, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight is a lot of Corvette stuff. So again, thank you all for tuning in. You guys have been awesome. Of course, I see a bunch of green names over in the chat. Always a good time. We have a really interesting conversation planned for you guys tonight because it's going to be one of those conversations that might be a little bit difficult, but it's going to be worth it. So right off the bat, we're going to kind of jump right into the sponsor of tonight, which of course is the NCM Insurance. We talk about this pretty much every time we start these shows, and just like usual, I'm going to talk about it again. So NCM Insurance is one of the coolest insurance companies out there as far as the way that they insure your car, your fun toy, because you kind of set the value. So it's obviously an agreed upon value, but you can choose, for the most part, where your car is and how much it's worth and what you would want to be paid out if that car was ever to be a total loss. Now, the reason this is interesting to me is because you have your collector's cars. You have your cars like mine that is modded to the gills and back. So it's worth more than your typical C8, C06. And because of that, we can agree upon a value that if something were to ever happen and the car got stolen or anything like that, I would get what I want out of the car and not just some random blue book number that's going to pay me way less than it's actually worth. So really good insurance company to look at as far as protecting your toys. They do insure other cars other than just Corvettes as well. So if you want to get, any one of your actual toy cars insured, be a Mustang, a Camaro, whatever it might be, you can still get it through NCM Insurance. So again, guys, if you go to ncminsurance.com, you can click on get a quote. And in step 3, I believe it is, it's going to ask you where you heard about us. Just put in there HPO 26, and that's going to make sure that they know exactly where you came from and exactly why you're there. So definitely check them out. Link in the description down below. Give them a shout and let them know that Horsepower Obsessed sent you. Like I said before, it's free, and it's not going to cost you anything but a couple minutes of your time. Even if you think your insurance company currently is the best one you've ever had, give it a shot. You might be surprised. So anyway, guys, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Engineered insanity is like Justin's background changes every week. Are we sure this is the real Justin? I'm finally getting into the point of actually setting up my media room here. So this is just the start. So this is what it's gonna evolve from here. But ultimately, I got my desk where I want it. The background is going to change massively over the next couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. But at the end of the day, yeah, we're in the right room this time at least. So definitely, moving forward. The whole moving thing, I don't recommend it. 0 out of 10. Don't do it if you don't have to. So quite domestic these days. Yeah, exactly. It'll look more like the old one here in a little bit once I get some of my stuff back there. But yeah. Thumbs up for the background, please. Yeah, KP. Let's rock these thumbs up. Let's get them going quick tonight, guys. Let's get to 100 by 8 o'clock, of course. That's 22 minutes from now. And right now we have how many? And this isn't showing me for some reason, but I'm sure we have some. So we got 120 people watching, 44 likes. So let's keep going with the thumbs ups, guys. We got 56 more to get in 22 more minutes. Smash the thumbs ups. We're going to be talking about a lot of really cool stuff tonight. So make sure you're jumping in on this discussion. But before we get too much into it, I'm going to throw it over to Joler, because he's going to be our guest of honor tonight. But before we get too much into that, he's going to talk to us about the HPO Vet Exchange and our partnership with Criswell. Joe, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Justin. Hello, everybody. Hope you all had a great July 4th, and really excited this week for 2 pretty awesome cars we have in 2026 new Criswell partner cars. Just so you know, 2026s are starting to thin out on the lots, as you would envision, with 27s coming in. On Griswold at the moment, there's literally about 6 left. So 2 of the 6 we're going to go over tonight, and I think they're really, really good builds and tremendous value. So the first one is a 26 Z06 2LZ riptide blue metallic jet black interior. And this car has a lot of really nice options on it. So you've got the front lift, you've got the 10-spoke polished with carbon flash pockets, forged aluminum wheels, GT2 bucket seats. The outside mirrors and spoiler are carbon flash metallic, which is always a nice look. Total options $91.80. Sticker price $138,275, and the HPO special price, Justin, is $15,102 off sticker, which is $123,173. Just to put that in perspective, the 2027 1LZ base, 0 options, $121,395. So for $123,173, you're jumping into 2LZ, same interior, same body, same performance. So a really, really awesome build and awesome deal. So don't wait too long. It's a post July 4th special, as it were. And that's our first one. The second one, 26 Corvette Stingray Coupe. This one is a 2LT. If you're loving competition yellow tint coat with jet black interior, this is a tremendous build. So you've got the front lift, you've got carbon flash painted high wing spoiler, you've got performance exhaust with black tips, the transparent removable roof, you've got the 5-split satin graphite with machine edge forged aluminum wheels, yellow painted brake calipers, which obviously are a must on this build, stealth interior trim package, yellow seat belts to offset the black interior and yellow exterior, competition yellow custom leather stitching throughout. I mentioned the exhaust tips are black. You've got dark stealth crossed flag emblem package, which looks great on the yellow. And you even have the custom splash guards installed on these straight away. You've got a roof panel storage pouch in case you want to take that top out and protect it. You've got the outside spoiler and mirrors at the carbon flash metallic. You've got black wheel locks so you can protect your wheels. And last but not least, you've got the engine lighting package. In case you were totaling that up, you would be correct. $14,628 in options. Sticker price $93,723. $93,723. Your special exclusive HP only price is $82,599. That's $11,124 off sticker. So you've got 2 really attractively priced cars. One, if you're looking for a Z06, and the other, if you're looking for a really attractive non-Z06. I think you found it. So that's what we've got this week in terms of the HPO exchange. I would also mention, obviously, as we do, anyone who is looking or knows anyone who is looking to come out of an existing Corvette, no matter what generation or what year, give us a shout, and we will certainly explain the process, white glove, just like we do with Griswell, and take the selling part of getting out of your Corvette totally off your hands.
Yep. So Anthony George actually asks, do all sales include a foam finger? I think we could make that happen, Anthony.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If any of you guys decide to buy one of these cars and you buy it through us which would get you typically an extra 1,000 or more off of those cars, send us a message through the hpovetexchange@gmail.com or just the horsepowerobsessed@gmail. Either way, if you buy one of the cars, we'll make sure you get a foam finger. So,
and that's not it, Justin. That's not all. You will also get the official Horsepower Obsessed Griswell joint T-shirt.
Yep.
No extra charge.
There you go. So a T-shirt and a foam finger.
And if any of you buy one of these 2 cars, we'll also give you the Joler T-shirt. So there you go. If that doesn't really get you to want to buy one of those 2, I don't know what will.
I was going to say nothing's going to get them to buy it if those 2 things don't work. Okay, so guys, real quick, what we're going to mention. I want to talk a little bit about something that happened kind of recently, which was the C8 Corvette Stingray, the new LS6 Stingray, is now capable of 200 miles per hour as a top speed. Now, this has made big news, big waves in the community because mostly because if I had to guess, it's one of the cheapest ways to get into a 200 mile an hour capable car. But just to put this in perspective before we start really talking about this, the outgoing model was 194 miles an hour. So we're talking about 6 miles an hour more. This isn't earth-shattering improvements by any means, but it is interesting that this is now one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, way to hit a 200 mile an hour top speed car. So that LS6 engine is doing a little bit more than just boosting the horsepower by a little bit and the torque by a little bit. It is 100% confirmed, Professor Corvette. It is a 200 mile an hour car. GM actually put out a video of the car hitting 200 miles per hour. And it's an awesome feat. Like I've talked about it countless times here, that the C8 Corvette has really it has elevated the Corvette into brand new heights, and it continues to do so. So it's definitely interesting because, yeah, that was another thing, Hot Rod Todd. In that video, you got a clip or a glimpse of something that confirmed an 11-second quarter mile and a 2.8-second 0 to 60. So these are, again, improvements over the outgoing Stingray of 2026 and older. So the Stingray was, I believe, 11.2 in the quarter and 2.9 or 3 seconds, 0 to 60. So all of these numbers have been improved, of course. Now, this is more than just because of the extra 40 horsepower. It's also, there's some changes to the transmission that I've read about, some gearing things that they manipulated to make the car be able to do this. So 6 miles an hour faster in a top speed has really made like national news. And it's interesting because personally, it's cool, but when are you ever going to use that? You know, it's like the ZR1 and the ZR1X hitting 233 miles per hour. That's impressive because that starts to take down supercars. But again, even with those cars, when are you ever going to use that? You're never going to hit 233 miles an hour in a quarter mile. You're never going to hit that on any tracks that I know of in the United States. Even the Nürburgring, you're never going to hit 233 miles an hour. So it's like, I mean, it's cool. It's a bragging right, I guess. But I don't know that it really should be as big of a deal as some of these media outlets are making it. Either way, Stingray is new and improved. I like it. And of course, this is going to funnel into the Grand Sport as well to some degree. Keep in mind, the Grand Sport is a wide body car with more aero, so odds are good it is not going to hit that same 200 miles per hour. It's probably going to be right with the Z06 at 194, 195. So aero will 100% affect this. The car that ran 200 miles an hour was the car with no aero spoiler, no aero anywhere. So it is a totally aero-less car. That's the only one that will hit 200. As soon as you add the spoiler and stuff, you're cutting probably 5 miles an hour off the top speed, if not 10. So same thing happened with the C8 Stingray. And the original one, I should say the 2020 to 2026. As soon as you added the Z51 package, top speed was different. So definitely interesting. I like to see Chevy just continually improving these cars. But I wanted to mention this really quick because it was big news for the National Corvette Day, which was, again, a cool day. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, Justin, it's funny because much like you were thinking, I wanted to go back and do a little bit of a historical top speed review just because, when I saw what you saw and everyone saw the 200 miles per hour, you mentioned you've got 40 more horsepower. There's 50 more torque in the new engine. And, you pick up 6 miles per hour. So just a quick comparison, you forget that the 2008 C6 LS3 top speed was 186 miles per hour. And so 14 miles per hour faster for the new one, but that's 19 years later with 100%, about 100 more, I should say, horsepower and 100 more torque. So, it's pretty impressive when you think back, to 08, 19 years ago, and, how much of a monster really that car was. And, then you go back even to the, era before that, and I had lost track of these numbers, but I dug them out. And the C5 LS1 top speed, there was really never an official, but they say it was between 170 and 175. So let's assume the Chevy number of 175 is accurate, right? That would leave the brand new LS6 again at 200 miles per hour, or let's say 25 miles per hour faster than an engine that is now more than a quarter of a century or 26 years later at 200, with nearly 200 horsepower more and 155 more torque, and 4 generations of engine later, LS3, LT1, LT2, and now LS6. So it's pretty staggering to think back that, in that 2001, you had a Corvette, a base Corvette doing 175. So I thought that was really neat, and I wanted to share that sort of extra perspective on top of,
Yeah,
the
and
comments.
it actually kind of lends, it kind of sets the scene, so to speak, for just how difficult it is to get to 200 miles an hour, because they literally, Corvette's been trying to do it for years now. And I mean, the first one that I can think of, other than the C4 Sledgehammer, which, we're not going to count that because that's not quite the same thing as just a regular production car. The first time that I can recall that they did it was actually with the I think the C601 or maybe the C701. But either way, hitting 200 miles an hour was a tough feat. And especially now doing it in what is otherwise an entry-level car is definitely impressive. Don't get me wrong. It's 100% impressive. But just like Cameron Thompson here said, practically speaking, how often are you going to be driving at top speed? Most of us never will, let alone do it often. So Joe and I were talking recently, on the phone, and I said the same thing. I said, the 200 mile an hour top speed is great, but like, odds are good you're never going to see it. And if you do, it's going to be like a one-time thing, because that's still not going to be something that you're going to be doing on a daily basis. Running from your house to Walmart, you're going to hit 200 miles an hour. It's not going to happen. But one other question that came up here was from KP. He said he thought that aero helps with slippery drag coefficient to get that extra speed. Aero actually, basically what the aero is doing, especially on the Z06, is it's pushing the rear end especially and the front end down on the car to make sure that the car stays planted at high speeds. And a side effect or a con of aero is also drag. So because these extra bits are sticking off the car to grab air to push it down, it's also not allowing air to pass over the car as freely as it would without those parts. So therefore, it's kind of fighting against you at top speed, which is why the Stingray with any kind of aero is going to be lower than 200 miles an hour, just like the same reason that the C8 Grand Sport is going to be less than 200 miles an hour, because it's going to have that wide body and more aero that's going to effectively lower that top speed.
Yeah, no surprise. Every prior gen version, non-Stingray, non-wing, was the same situation. Just didn't have as much top speed, which, as you just said, is understood.
Yeah, and Snowcone says, why even care about top speed? My instinct to live kicks in about 150 miles an hour. That's a great point. And like I was saying, you're never going to hit 200 miles an hour, and even on most tracks, you're not going to hit 200 miles an hour. The tracks don't have long enough straightaways or enough straightaways to ever hit that top speed. So this is more of a bragging right than anything. You show up to the car show and you're in your new Stingray and you say, yeah, that thing's got a 200 mile an hour top speed. That's about it. Because I can see it's an impressive statistic. It's an impressive milestone for Chevrolet to hit in a entry-level Corvette. but in reality, it's not that big of a deal to regular people like us. So real quick, guys, we got 170 people in here watching. Smash that thumbs up. We are at 89. We don't need only 11 more in 6 minutes to hit our goal of 100 by 8 o'clock. So smash the thumbs up, guys. We have a lot to discuss tonight. The 200 mile an hour top speed of the C8 Stingray, sorry, is just the beginning. And as you can see here from the Car and Driver article, it is in fact legit, 100% confirmed from Chevrolet and Car and Driver that the 2027 Corvette Stingray can get you into that 200 mile an hour club. And it is an interesting club because you either really care about it or you really don't. I'm kind of in the category that I don't really care as much as you probably should. It is an impressive statistic, don't get me wrong, but it's just not going to, it would never be make or break for me because you're not going to spend any time at 200 miles an hour. DD says, how fast do you think a tuned LS6 C8 could go after it's tuned? Well, first off, the LS6 engine, the Stingray and the Grand Sport is coming out with a new ECM that has not been unlocked yet. As far as I know, it hasn't been unlocked, and it might be a bit before it gets unlocked. Once it does and it's able to be tuned, if you leave it stock and you tune it, you're probably not talking about a whole lot more. But if you throw some turbos on it or some craziness, which again is going to be kind of difficult on that engine because of how high the compression ratio is, maybe they could get crazy. We're about to find out though. It takes a lot of horsepower to raise the top speed. It does. And someone I saw, who was that? I think it was Ricky, said that he thought the C6 ZR1 top speed was 212. That's actually the C7 ZR1 top speed is 212. So let me Google it real quick and see if maybe the C6 was the same. I know the C7 top speed. No, so C6 ZR1 was 205. C7 ZR1 was 212. Now the C8 ZR1 is 233. So
yeah,
it keeps improving. I mean, you're trending upwards. You can't ask for anything more than that.
I've got a really cool picture of Miro on the Autobahn in the ZR1 C7 doing 212.
That's awesome.
So he basically shows the speedometer for any doubters with the GM rating. It's 212.
Did he show the speedometer or was it the PDR?
Good question. I have to go back and look.
Because the reason I'm asking is because if he managed to grab his phone and hold it up and take a picture of his speedometer while he's going 212 miles an hour, that's impressive.
What's funny about the picture, though, is, to the right of him is some other passenger car. And I'm just thinking, like, what are they thinking when this thing goes by you in the fast lane at 212?
Yep. Top speed is a lot about gearing, but horsepower number does still matter. The thing with the C7 Z06, I'm going to have to look it up because I'm pretty sure the C7 Z06 top speed was also 195. Yeah. So 195 for the C7 Z06. From the C7 Z06 to the C7 ZR1, there was a 100 horsepower increase, and that was pretty much it. Gearing and stuff didn't change. And that is what pushed it from 195 up to 212. So that was simply a horsepower change, nothing to do with gearing. So it's not always gearing. Gearing helps, of course, and sometimes you could probably squeeze an extra couple miles per hour out of it just with nothing but gearing. But in this case, it's usually going to involve horsepower as well. So
yeah, it's also interesting to see how long in that video it took to get to 200 miles per hour.
This is why I said even on a track, you're not going to really see it. You're going to need like 3 or 4 freaking airport strips in just a straight line to really hit that number. And I mean, when Chevy does it at the proving grounds and stuff, I mean, they're on a basically a giant oval. So they can just hit these speeds and just keep going and going and going. And the reason why like the C7 ZR1 is 212 miles an hour is because against the wind, it was 210 or something like that. And with the wind, it was 215. So they averaged them out. So they even factor in which direction the wind's blowing to make sure that they're getting this number as close to accurate as possible. But I mean, they're out there for probably 20 to 30 minutes on just one like high speed track wrap just to get it to go that speed. And I mean, that's why I mean, like, you're never really going to see that. Yeah, Snowcone says 0 to jail was already less than 10 seconds. I guess people really want to see how fast they meet Jesus when they come to a sudden stop. I mean,
explain that one to the cop, by the way. Yeah, I was just taking out the new car.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I had gone to 200, so I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I was just testing out the new LS6 to make sure it actually did hit 200 miles an hour. Let's see. Yeah, Kevin says, I really don't care about the highest horsepower. I like to be pushed in my seat pretty hard, and that's what does it for me. I agree. And I mean, to some degree, there is diminishing returns on this. When you drive a fast car, a really fast car, I mean, and this is going to be something Joe and I are going to talk about here in a second. When you're in like a ZR1X, it's 1,250 horsepower. If you go from 1,250 to, let's say, 1,400, it's more horsepower. And you know we're obsessed with that here. But are you even going to notice that? That's already so much power. At what point does the additional horsepower become literally diminishing returns where you're not even feeling it? And I mean, I would say it's right around the ZR1X territory, where if you throw a cold air intake on that and a tune and this, that, and the other, you're probably barely going to even notice it. The car doesn't need any more horsepower.
Right. It's funny you say that, and it's true, because it's really about acceleration. That feeling of your head, getting snapped back is not necessarily just a horsepower thing, right? It's a whole tuning / curve in terms of the pedal to the throttle body, and not to sort of look self-serving. But I mean, anyone who has bought, those products will attest to the fact that on Ludicrous 8 or 9 or even Sports 7, you picked up 0 horsepower in a controller, but what you've done is unleash literally the bear hug and the horsepower that is already in these cars. And I think because they feel, sort of tame, people mistake the fact that I need more horsepower. And yeah, for people that want more horsepower, I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying that you aren't even really experiencing the horsepower that car has, because programmatically it's almost been, I hate to use the word detuned, but I'll use the word bear hug. And when you take that bear hug off, whether it's a 495 or 490 Stingray or a 670, Z06, you'll be amazed at how much more power you think you have actually gotten, because your acceleration, just changes drastically.
Yep. Yeah, and Professor Corvette says it's a bummer that he on a regular basis he's going 186 miles an hour in his C8 Z06 and ZR1s, and Rimac Naveras are blowing him away on a daily basis while he's just going 186. It's just a normal occurrence for him, But yeah. So Steven actually says half mile on a ZR1 and you're doing over 200 miles an hour. I don't doubt it. The ZR1 is a different story, but with how long it's going to take the Stingray to hit that same 200 miles an hour, it's a different topic at that point. I think the ZR1 and the ZR1X, the top speed matters more for those cars because of how much power they have, how much quicker you're going to hit that 200. But even then, you're not going to spend a lot of time at over 200 miles an hour in any of these cars. It doesn't matter how much horsepower it has, how fast it can hit 200. It is very unlikely that you're going to see that number for any sizable amount of time of ownership in that car. The tracks in America are not big enough. The straights aren't long enough. Even in the ZR1s, it's going to be pretty hard for you to see that. And if you do, it's going to be a glimpse, and then you're hitting your brakes. So again, in a Stingray, I would be surprised to ever see someone doing it unless they're literally on a straight path for a long period of time purposely to see 200.
Yeah, even at the ring, I'm trying to remember what the top speed of the ZR1 was. I want to say it was like 180.
I was gonna say I don't think they hit 200 on the Nürburgring, and that would that would probably be the only track I could think of off the top of my head that would have one long enough to even see it on a track.
Yeah, I want to say I remember seeing 180 something, I thought, on the odometer, but I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah. What was that question I just saw? Somebody said, yeah, that's it. You better be on a very flat road. Any dip and you're done. And that's 100% it. Like, especially in a Stingray that can do 200 miles an hour with no arrow, and you hit a dip in the road, you better be quick on your feet because it's not gonna do what you want it to do. Star Car 01 says, Justin, how fast were you going when you got pulled over? I do like the way that Anthony George responded to this, which was allegedly pulled over. I don't think it's a good idea for me to say that, but I'll just say that I'm not going to say anything, actually. It's not a good idea to talk about that.
So let me translate that. It was a bit less than 200 miles per hour.
Just a little bit. But no, what Joe says about acceleration is definitely it. When you're in a fast car, and you'll know when you're in a fast car, of course. When I got the privilege of driving Steven's ZR1X, I don't care how fast the top speed is in that car. When I get in it and push the gas, it pushes you into the seat in a way you would not believe. The acceleration was more than enough for me. That's how you know you're in a fast car. That acceleration will get you every single time. The top speed doesn't matter to me. If the top speed of that car was 150 miles an hour, I doubt that would even remotely affect my decision on whether or not to buy one. The acceleration is everything. You can, all the power you're ever going to feel, the power you add, the power the car comes with, it's always going to be the acceleration is where you're going to notice it daily. Yeah, so another thing, Star Car, I saw Clay talking about a little bit. David, DBM Racing, and myself will be at the Invasion here in a couple days. So I'm still debating on whether or not I'm going to be taking my car. But even if I don't take my car, I will still be there. So make sure if you guys see me, come up and talk. It doesn't matter if I have a camera in my hand or not. It doesn't matter. Come up and interrupt me. I want to talk to you. That's the only reason I go to these things. I want to meet and talk to all of you guys. So make sure you're coming out and interrupting me if you have to. Insurance companies are listening. That's exactly it, Mark. We don't want to admit to anything. I don't like admitting the things that allegedly happened. Cameron Thompson says, see you at the Invasion. Yep. Anybody who's in that area or going to the Invasion, I will be there. So will David from DBM Racing. We're there to meet and greet with you guys. Come out and talk to us. Let's see. What else do we got to talk about here tonight? So we're going to talk all about the C9. Me and Joe have had a lot of really interesting conversations about the C9. We're going to get to that in 1 second. Before we do, for those of you out there that are looking for a Grand Sport X, it has officially been added to the C8 order guide. What this means for you is that it's going to be a matter of time, if not already happening at your dealership, that they're going to start taking orders for these, or at least writing your name down on a piece of paper as being the guy who wants one. So it's in the actual information here now for the dealers. So stay tuned for that. If you're a Grand Sport X kind of guy, you're going to be able to order these things here pretty soon. And that's pretty cool. Grand Sport X, again, potentially going to be, actually not potentially, it's definitely going to have a lesser top speed than the new Stingray as well, for the same reason. It's going to have some form of aero. Even if it's just a duckbill wing and a little splitter in the front, that's enough. That's going to lower the top speed. So the reason why you only saw the Stingray doing that, and they only discussed the Stingray doing it, is because the Grand Sport probably won't. And that's no jab at a Grand Sport by any means. That is a normal thing. As soon as you add aero, it's going to lower the top speed, which is one of the reasons why it's pretty impressive what the ZR1 and the ZR1X can still do with the giant wing, which is not 233. I think somebody said it was in the 220 range. Even with that giant wing creating a ton of downforce and probably a lot of drag, it's still able to exceed 200 miles an hour. Again, just another reason why those cars are very impressive. But let's see. Yeah. 200 miles an hour with no aero is dangerous. I agree. You better really know what you're doing. Now that we hated on everything, yeah, right. I'm not hating on anything, man. It's the Stingray hitting 200 miles an hour is an awesome engineering feat. Chevy and Corvette team always improving, and I like to see it trending upwards. I'm just keeping it in perspective. For most people, that really doesn't matter because you're not really gonna see it. Texas Clay says, Justin, can you help us? Can you help connect us going to the invasion? It's a great question. Let me think about how I could make it easier. If we could have maybe somewhere to meet up or something. I'll work on that. Clay, why don't you shoot me an email after the live here, and maybe you and I can bounce some ideas off each other and try to figure something out. Okay, so other than the Grand Sport being added, the other thing that I wanted to discuss, and I'm not sure if you saw this yet, Joe, but the C9 Corvette sales are up 6.5% in the first half of the year here. So this is obviously a good thing for Corvette. We want to see that trending upward thing again. And this is the first time that I can recall seeing an upward trending sales for this car in a little bit. So this is a good thing to see. But yeah, you can see the numbers there. We have a 6.5% increase. And you can see some of these cars, they're in the negatives. So just keep that in mind. The Corvette is obviously doing good things here.
Yeah, and it's impressive, seeing that going into the 7th model year. And if we do have to get to 2030 or even 2029, still a lot of model years left. So good to see that it still has some staying power. I think, though, if you still annualize that, even a great quarter, and you annualize that number, it's still a sub 30, number. And then you extrapolate that out to, 28, 29. And, the C9 is not going to come soon enough, I think, in terms of, numbers you're going to start probably seeing 25, 23, 20 in those out years. Remember how, the 2019, was all of, I believe it was like 13,000. Everyone knew, of course, the C8 was coming out in 20. And I suspect if they announce 30, that'll probably be, maybe a bit north of that number in 29. If it is a 29, you're going to see a number similar to that in 28, probably. So yeah, I mean, kudos that they were able to pull off a great quarter.
So Charles says, not true. The GSX will be over 200 miles an hour. Very unlikely. GSX is going to have the same LS6 engine with the hybrid front motor. And if we look up the information here for the E-Ray, the top speed for the E-Ray was 183 miles an hour. That's actually lower than the Stingray with the same engine. So you guys got to remember that front hybrid motor does not carry that car all the way to 180 plus miles an hour. So at some point, you're relying simply on the LS6 engine in the back to push you further into that, closer to that 200 mile an hour range. With any kind of aero, you're not hitting that 200 miles an hour. So very unlikely that it will hit 200. With that said, another comment here says, I have a Z06. Would I want a ZR1X or a ZR1? Not really. Maintenance costs will be much higher. I don't think the maintenance costs would be any higher on those cars, to be honest with you, but what is higher is the insurance and the over MSRP charges that you'll pay. For the extra 300 to 400 horsepower, you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? What you paid for your Z06 is already between 120 and 140, if I had to guess. Do you want to throw another 100 grand at it plus for some extra horsepower? We're pretty obsessed with horsepower on this channel, and even I'm asking that question to myself and wondering if I should do such a thing or not, because I really love the Z06. It's one of the best cars I've ever driven, and I've driven ZR1s, I've driven ZR1Xs. They're fantastic too, but are they worth that much more money?
Yeah,
maybe. Hot Rod Todd says, for most drivers, 200 miles an hour top speed is something to tell people at a car show. That's 100% it.
Yeah.
Adding horsepower is an exercise in diminishing returns. Doubling horsepower does not double top speed. That's it. Horsepower in general is going to get you a higher top speed, but it is definitely a slow run. Like Joe said, from the C5 all the way up, it has only increased really 25 miles an hour since the early 90s. So, and that's because of, you know, advancements in gearing, transmissions, horsepower. It's taken a lot to get to that point.
Yeah, and just to reiterate those numbers, so you had 350 horsepower, 360 pounds of torque, got you the 175. The new engine, right? The 6.7 LS6 is getting you to 200 miles per hour, as I said, with almost 200 more horsepower and 155 more torque. And to your point about doubling, it's 25 horsepower.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Know?
So again, Charles says true, but it has the 01X electric, so it will. Still not true. The 01X has the same top speed as the 01, 233 miles an hour, because again, that front motor is doing nothing at those top speeds. It is all the gas-powered engine in the rear, which is the same in the 01 and the 01X. So again, the front motor does nothing to improve, or actually it probably does more to harm top speed than it does to improve it. So keep that in mind. Again, it's the Grand Sport X is very unlikely to hit 200 miles an hour.
You're adding a lot more weight in the battery motors.
Yep, and it shuts off, I believe. Let me see where it shuts off on the. I know it shuts off on the E-Ray. I can't remember what the speed was. But I'm curious if the 01X, if it would be the same, and I'll look it up here. All right, looks like the E-Ray might shut off at 150 is what I'm seeing. Something tells me, okay, Steven, I was going to say between Steven and Ricky, somebody would know the answer, and it looks like 160 miles an hour. So if Steven, if you know, does the hybrid motor in the 01X shut off at that same speed? I'm going to guess that it's probably the same. And if it is, again, it's going to do nothing for you to get you to a higher top speed. That is totally the gas-powered engine at that point. Okay, so it's 160 for the 01X as well. Okay, so there's your answer. Even with the 01X hybrid motor, it's not going to help the Grand Sport X get to a higher top speed. So anyway, let's talk about the C9 Corvette. We've talked enough about the C8 Corvette. That's basically, I mean, I've been talking about the C8 Corvette since I started my channel. That's what really launched this channel, was the C8 Corvette in camo. And starting tonight, this is going to be one of the very first times we talk heavily about the C9 Corvette. And me and Joe were talking on the phone recently about it, and we kind of realized that the C9 Corvette kind of has a problem. The Chevy's going to have their work cut out for them here. And the biggest reason is, where do we go from here? If you guys remember, I made a video about the C8 ZR1X when it first came out, and I said the same thing. Where do we go from here? It's 1,250 horsepower in a car that looks amazing, performs incredible. Where do we go from here? What kind of car? And actually, Steven, you're the best one to ask. He Hypervet here owns a ZR1X. What would it take for you, Steven, to move out of that ZR1X into a C9 Corvette? What would that look like for you? What would this C9 Corvette have to do to get you to literally sell your ZR1X and jump into a C9? What would it have to do? This is kind of speculation, Professor Corvette. We're not really talking about any statistics or specifications of the C9. I'm talking more so about what it's going to take to move a current C8 Corvette owner from the car they're in now to the C9. So If you're in a Stingray,
Yeah.
it's probably not as imperative. It's not as a big of a deal. But I would say the Z06 and up, what does it take for you to move from your car to a C9? Especially the C9 Stingray. What would it take for you to get into a C9 out of a Z06, an E-Ray, a Grand Sport X, whatever you might have above a Stingray? What would it take?
Well, Justin, unscientifically, across the 3 different Corvette clubs I'm in New Jersey, we've had this conversation, and almost to a man and woman, the answer has been it's not going to be for performance. And I'm speaking about Z06 folks exclusively here for a minute. I think me included, I think you and I have chatted enough. With the mods you can do to the existing Z06, there's really nothing you're wanting for performance wise. You know, you're in the middle lane, you're doing 85, you punch it to 130, the sound, the roar, everything is there. And you realize after coming back from Ron Fellows, you're literally driving a race car on the highway. I mean, it's that simple, right? So the answer I've gotten, me included, is it's going to have to be one hell of an aesthetic looking car. When they take the cover off that car, for me, I'm going to have to go, holy hell, I have to have one of those, because I don't feel as if I'm disappointed at all in the drivability, the handling, and frankly, the acceleration with the mods that we have on the car, the outright speed and instantaneous acceleration. So for me, if you tell me that the Stingray C9 is 810, 850 horsepower, I don't care. It goes back to acceleration versus horsepower. And I don't feel I'm lacking any of that at the moment. And so for me, you know, having been to the New York Car Show, you know, a few months back, you know, again, talking to the folks I was with there, we were having the same conversation. And for us, it's really like you've got to be wowed aesthetically, because performance wise, I don't think is enough of a factor. Now with the C7, and this is where I think Tony Roma and the gang, you know, are really, really, really challenged. And you know, this will be the first generation that Taj in 3 generations has not been involved in.
Yeah.
You know, you have no Harlan and no Kirk Benyon. So if you're talking about being in a pressure cooker, you've got to follow the C8 and all its variants. And that team didn't do any favors for the new rookies. And if they'd have stopped at the Z06 at 670, you'd say, okay, well, what if we threw 1,000 horsepower at you in the C9? You'd be like, wow, that would blow my mind. What about 1250? That would be really cool. But as you said, where do you go from here?
Right.
And if the C9 is 1,500 horsepower, of course, not the base one, but even call it the Z06 as an example for argument, you know, again, usable horsepower, where are you going with that? And what if aesthetically it's just not pleasing?
See,
you know,
and
now
that's
you've got the double whammy. Now you've got the double whammy of performance, you know, didn't get me. And now aesthetically, God forbid, it's not quite what you thought.
And I think with the C9, we've basically heard this. I don't know if any of the GM guys said this, but we've heard this discussed before, that the C9 is very likely to be an evolution of the C8. It's not going to be a total game changer, total radical departure like from the C7 to the C8 was. That was a completely different platform, completely different look, completely different engine placement. Everything was different. With the C9, it's literally going to be the C8 tweaked. So the excitement that was there for the C8 is not going to be quite the same on the C9. So it can't be sold based on excitement alone the way the C8 could have been. With that said, I see some good points popping up in here, but I want to ask Chili Pepper Brad. He says active aero. So he currently has a C8 Z06. Brad, I'm going to ask you specifically. Your C8 Z06, you would sell that car and buy the C9. I'm not talking about the C9 Z06. I'm just talking about the C9 Corvette Stingray, or whatever they're going to call the base entry-level car. You would buy the C9 Corvette and get rid of your C8 Z06 if the only change they made was active aero. Is that what you're saying? And then moving on, there's a bunch of good points here. I want to make sure. I like Charles's answer. What would get him out of his C8 Z06 and into the C9 Corvette? And he says an act of Congress. I love my Z06. I'm with you. I really am. I'm a YouTuber, so I kind of have to have the most recent, thing to really make content with. With that said, when the C9 comes out, if I buy one, period, I would buy one and I'm keeping the C8 Z06. I would keep that C8 Z06 until the C9 Z06 comes out and see if that thing wows me enough to get rid of my C8 Z06. Because at that point, I would consider it. But I'm hesitant to say what it would take for me to do that because I really don't know. At this point, the C8 Z06 is such a good car. Even aesthetically, I mean, it would have to be really, really mind-blowing. And I don't see that being the case. I mean, the car that I put on the thumbnail, GM is referring to that car as the CX. So if anything, that's the C10. That's very unlikely what the car would look like as a C9. And even a C10, it's very unlikely to look like that even in a C10 because it sits a millimeter off the ground. It has half a front bumper. A lot of this stuff isn't literally not DOT approved. Like you can't drive a car like that. It's cool to see that as a concept, but that would not be road legal. So I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, Texas. I know Clay. You said that you would do it for a Z06X with active or with aero, but if just to get out of your C8 Z06 and into the C9 Stingray or whatever they're going to call the entry level, is there anything that car could do that would make you consider getting rid of your Z and jumping into that base car? That's really what I'm asking here.
The other thing that you and I were chatting about is if the flat plane does not survive into the C9, the other decision is, okay, if I have to give up, a Z06, and I get basically, the brand new engine with turbos or supercharging, more likely turbos, and I don't have that same sound, is that something that I'm really attracted to? And I think a lot of Z06 owners love the fact that it's a naturally aspirated flat plane crank. And so if they're not going to keep that in their lineup in any way, shape, or form in the C9, then that's a whole nother, sort of challenge, if you will, to that decision point of, what makes me move. And if that's one of the pieces that you really like, that's not a positive thing to want to leave behind, right?
See, now this is something that I would have to assume the Chevrolet, the Corvette team has discussed. And this could be where you start to see the SUV and the stuff that they've talked about as rumors for years now. This could be where those things start to pop up because I'm seeing the answers that I figured I would here. And that's just like Clay just said. No, there's nothing that would get him out of his C8 Z06 into a C9 base car. So what are they going to, I mean, that's the C8 Stingray, when it came out, that is what propelled the entire thing forward. The amount of people that were interested in that C8 Corvette, the Stingray, that's what moves that entire thing forward. You got so much money coming in on the base model. You're making a ton of money because all the options and everything, that's where all your money's coming in. They made, I think it was literally one LT non-Z51, no option cars. So no one got that car at $59,900. And even with that said, you couldn't touch that car for the first year and a half to 2 years without paying well over MSRP. This was what propelled Chevy to say, okay, let's make the Z06, let's make this, let's make that, let's make all these things because they made so much money. But if you're not moving from your C8 Z06 or your C8 E-Ray or your C8 whatever to the C9, that's going to hurt the future of the C9 lineup in general. So I'm seeing most people are saying no, they wouldn't make that move. So what would make you make that move? Brad said he'd stick with the Z06. Clay said he'd stick with the Z06. Brad says maybe a manual transmission. That's possible. But one thing to keep in mind about the manual is that, yeah, they're fun to drive. I'm a manual guy all day, every day. But it's also slower. So now you're talking about a C9 Stingray that could potentially have a 0 to 60 time of 3.2 to 3.5 seconds because it's a manual. even though that's really cool to have, it's effectively slower. So now what? Now you're getting out of your C8 Z06 that does 2.6, 2.8 second 0 to 60s into a car that does a higher 0 to 60 because it's a manual, but it's more fun to drive. This is all I'm hoping Corvette team is thinking about all this stuff, because this is going to be a tough thing for Corvette to overcome.
And I think that's why Tony Roma, again, he could be playing Jekyll and Hyde, but he was pretty emphatic that they're not doing it. And it does make sense because one, I think it was Josh Holder that said, people voted with the C7 and there just wasn't enough demand for it. And even now there's this recurrence of people talking about wanting it again. But to your very point, I think they realize we're not going to go backward in times as far as 0 to 60 in quarter mile. So just forget it. Like, they're not even entertaining it because of what I think you just said. And I really do believe that for the amount of people that would buy one, even if it's 15 or 20%, which would be way up from 10%, a slower car, envision in 2030, if that's the model year, we're in the year 26, we're just getting into the 27 model year. 3 years from now, just think about what's going to be in the marketplace at what speeds. And you're going to basically say, we're launching our premier C9 in 2030, and it does XYZ speed. And people are going to be like, well,
right,
why would we have that version? And you're like, well, because people said they wanted it. And then what if they don't? That's a lot of money invested in something that you've already made the decision with the C8, let alone the C9.
With all that said, though, Tremec has the transmission. They developed that for a reason, regardless of what anybody has said. Tremec did not make that transmission just because they were bored. They made that transmission because somebody requested it. And the fact that it looks exactly like the transmission that's currently in the C8 tells me GM is the one that requested it. So I really think we're going to see a manual in the C9 at some point. But with that said, everything Joe just said is those are still valid points. How do you sell a car, regardless of what performance variant it is, as slower than the previous one just because it has a manual? Now, I'll be honest, I'd probably still be, I'd be happy that they offer it, but it doesn't make a ton of sense. So LaCroix asked me if he could buy my Z06. Everything's for sale for the right price, LaCroix. If you're really interested, send me an email. horsepowerobsessed@gmail.com. We'll have a discussion about it. Kevin, I love this point. He says, I plan on keeping my C8 Z06, and I've considered buying a spare LT6 flat plane crank because I love it that much. I'm right there with you. I really am. The C8 Z06 is literally one of the best cars I've ever driven, and I've been behind the wheel of some really cool cars. So that says a lot whenever I make that statement. I know it does, but I'm telling you guys as well, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Darren says, as impressive as the ZR1X horsepower and performance is, it's not enough to push me to add one to my garage, let alone give up my Z06 for one. This is a big statement right here, because this is saying everything on top of the fact that we're not even talking about the C9 yet. He's saying literally the ZR1 and ZR1X, it's not enough to give up his Z06 for one. Now, fast forward to the C9, where it's going to be even less horsepower. Why would he want to give up his C8 Z06 for that if he's not willing to even for the ZR1 or ZR1X?
Yeah,
that's a problem.
This is the conversation we were having, you and I, and I'm telling you, everybody I've talked to at car shows that has a Z06 or the car clubs that have Z06s, I haven't had one person really come up with why they would do it. Other than, like I said, I think the one thing we've rallied around is aesthetically, if it just is something that screams, I have to have that car,
right?
Then that's a tough place to be, given that, it's such a subjective issue, right? Whereas horsepower, times quarter mile, 0 to 60, there's no subjectivity there. If you want power and that's your driving force and they deliver it, you're going to be the buyer. But again, I think that, having launched the ZR1 and ZR1X at the horsepower levels those cars are in the C8 kind of has stolen, some of that opportunity, if you will, from the C9 on the horsepower performance side. And again, I love the Corvette, and believe me, there's nothing that would make me happier than have a C9 that I want to buy immediately. I think
Right.
we're just talking real talk here,
Right.
and it's not because we don't want something to buy, or
Exactly.
we're being negative on a car that doesn't even exist. It's just a tribute, really, to what they've done with the C8
The
and
C8 is so
what they're
good.
doing. Yeah,
And that's it. Where do you go from here?
yeah. And now you have a freshman team that has to answer that and
Right.
has to basically, deliver, on something that is going to be. I don't care if Taj and the gang were still there, outdoing themselves would be hard after the
Exactly.
C8, ZR1, and ZR1X. Now you've got, a whole bunch of people looking at the new team, and that's a tall order.
Yep.
The other thing that I did a little bit of digging on, because I was curious, and I think it's relevant to this conversation, obviously, is GM claims that the C7 had 65 to 70% returning owners, be it C5 or C6. They have also now said with the C8, that number of repeat buyers they claim has dropped to 33%. And so that supports their thesis that the C8 has brought in an entirely new generation of non C8, I'm sorry, Corvette buyers. Now, whether that number is accurate or not, we can debate. But think about that for a minute. So the people that are your, historical Corvette folks, only 33% roughly liked the new design, the fact that it was a mid-engine, right? The
Yeah.
others said, sorry, not for me, and they didn't make the leap. But obviously, the new buyers, and I know from talking to people, and I'm sure we all do, people would never entertain or hardly entertain, if they were McLaren, Porsche, owners and the like, to get into a C6 or a C7. But when they saw the statistics on the C8 specs, they just had to experiment, if nothing else. And some of them still own them, and some of them had them 6 months or a year and said, okay, I'm back to my, my other brands, if you will. So think about the fact that those people came in to support only the 33% of repeat Corvette buyers to get the volume of sales that we know is pretty damn good in model year 7, right? So they may or may not, be in the mood to jump back in so quickly. And then lastly, if you've got the recent buyers of ZR1s and ZR1Xs who presumably love those vehicles, and now you've got a C9 coming out either in model year 29, which is not that far away, or if it is 2030, are they just as excited about those vehicles as we are about our Z06s?
No.
And so what's going to make those people
Right.
move? And so that's what I think the real dilemma is. And to your point, maybe that's why, they're going to launch some of these other vehicles, because maybe they recognize that they're not going to get a 50,000 sale year, like they did in, what was that, 23, I believe. I believe
Well,
it was 23.
again, Steven is always one of the better examples here because of the fact that I don't recall off the top of my head if he owned a Stingray, but I'm pretty sure he did. He's owned pretty much every one of the models. And actually, I think, yeah, he has. So, and he says, unless they top the ZR1X, which even if they did, it's going to be years. It's going to be years upon years before that model comes. Unless they top the ZR1X, it will be at least 6 years before he buys another Corvette. That's a long ways off. Now, he has a ZR1X now. He had a ZR1 before. He had an E-Ray before that. He had a Z06 before that. And I think he had a Stingray in the very beginning. So he is no stranger to the C8 lineup. However, the C9's not going to tempt him out of a ZR1X. Why would it? There's no way that car comes out with anything more than half the horsepower that a ZR1X has. So unless that thing looks absolutely fantastic and has ridiculously good performance on top of it, it's not going to tempt the people that have the higher performance variants of the C8. Maybe not even the guys with the Stingrays in the C8. Because, you're going from a C8 Stingray with, let's say you have, a 2020 to 2026. So your car has 495 horsepower. let's speculate the C9 comes out with even 550. Is it worth selling your car or trading it in, taking a beating on that to buy the new car, assuming you can even get it right off the bat, for 50 more horsepower? It's probably not worth it. And it's going to still have that visible look of a Stingray, so it's not like you're improving the appearance aesthetic. So I don't think even Stingray guys are going to want to jump ship to the new C9. Unless, again, it is just absolutely killer looking. It would, like, nothing you've ever seen before is what it would have to be.
Yep.
And like Ricky says, I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. As much as I love my E-Ray, I can't get over the sound of the Z06. I'm playing with the idea of trading my car in for a Z, but I'm also afraid the Z06X will come out. That's a valid concern, Ricky. What I will tell you on top of that is something Joe touched on earlier, is that the new 2027 Z06's 1LZ, no options, start at, what was it, Joe, 121?
Hold on a second. It is one more second. Where do I have that? 121, 395, base 1LZ, 0 options.
And you can get Z06s now, even still brand new 2026s, for less than that with options. So when the Z06X, if the Z06X comes out, you're not going to touch that car for anywhere near this price. So I don't think you're in a bad position to grab a Z, even if the Z06X does come. You're not going to lose a ton of money because they're already being discounted to the point where there's only so low these cars can go. Let's see. I'm behind on the comments here by a pretty good bit, so let me catch up. Wow, I'm really behind. Very few people will move on from their C8 Z06. Not sure who the new customers will be. Totally agree. Dan says I'm not getting rid of my C8 Z06. Yeah, honestly, kind of Robert Brunn kind of touches on this. The big thing, and we've talked about this before, that really the only place GM can go with the Corvette outside of the 1250 horsepower range is to lower the weight. And if they drop the weight on this car any significant amount, you can absolutely expect the price tag to go up a significant amount, because the only real way to do that would be carbon fiber tubs, use of magnesium and high-end metals. It's all going to make the price higher. But that's really the only thing left. They've got the horsepower. They've got a lot of the aero stuff, active aero, and weight reduction.
Yeah. And the other challenge too is if it is a 2030, what's the price tag of a base C9 going to even look like when you look at the fact that just in the last 7 years, we've had a 23% price increase from $59,995 to $73,000 for a base Stingray now. 3 more years from now, even with modest price increases, you're going to be looking at least 90 grand for a base C9. And what does that do to the community of affordability that has always been a hallmark of the Corvette car? Right.
And that's what really launched the C8, was that $59,900 price tag that, mind you, no one really got, because the car, between over MSRP charges and the fact that they barely made any 2020 C8s 1LT with no options. So no one really got that $59,900 price tag, but it didn't matter. The excitement was so crazy. With that said, there's no way to launch a C9 at less than what a C8 Stingray currently costs. So, and I think they're in the 70s, 73, I believe 73. It was. Yeah.
73, the 27 is, and then add 2 more model years if it's a 29, or add 3 more model years.
You're into 80s at least. Yeah.
And yeah. So, that's a significant jump for people, for a base car with no options, aesthetically beautiful as it might be. So that's the other issue, is they've moved up scale, pretty quickly, price-wise. And then obviously with the other variants, even in the C8, I mean, they're priced at levels now that are a whole different animal, 215, 230, 250, 270.
Yeah. E-Vapors is in here, he says, and I agree with this too. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. He says a lot of guys want the shiny new object. They say no now, but let the C9 come out. And he's right. There are a lot of people out there that will buy it just because it's the new thing. And to be honest, I'm probably one of them, and only because of the YouTube thing. If I wasn't a YouTuber and I'm just a Corvette fan, I would skip the base model or the Stingray, whatever it's going to be called. I would skip that every time because the Z06, you guys, you're going to be able to make a pull string doll out of me saying this. The Z06 is always the best bang for the buck. The Z06 is always the car you want. And I think I've told this story before, but when I pre-ordered my C8 Z06, I did that in 2019. When I bought my C7 ZR1 in 19, I made my salesman make a note on a Post-it. I watched him write it down and stick it on his computer monitor that I wanted the C8 Z06. At the time, the C8 didn't even exist, let alone a C8 Z06. And I said, I don't care. That car's coming, and when it does, the Z06 is the one I want. And lo and behold, 4 years later, I did get a phone call from them saying that the car was ready to order. I completely forgot that I'd even told them any of this stuff. So really an interesting kind of concept here. But mark my words, the C9 Z06 will be the same thing. It will be the best bang for the buck.
Yeah, and I hope they deliver because having had C5, 6, 7, 8, and multiple C8s, including now the Z06 and ZR1, I'm rooting for a beautiful C9 because I get bored. And, I generally don't have a car more than a year and a half to 3 years. 3 years is long. And I've got a 25. So by 2029 or 30, believe me, I'm going to be very much itching to want something to jump into. But that's why I'm being a realist that for me, it's going to have to be aesthetics because I'm not feeling at all, like I'm not having.
The itch isn't there. I agree. Engineered Sanity asked if he can buy the pillow on my couch. Like I said, man, everything's for sale. Send me an email, make me an offer I can't refuse, and you might just be able to get it. This is a real concern here too. So Steve Robertson says he also doesn't want any kind of subscription-based services in the C9. This is a real concern because Chevy's already talked about removing CarPlay, Android Auto, possibly going with subscription services like, you got to pay monthly to have heated seats and stuff like that. That would definitely start to kill the vibe of that car as well. So between stuff like that and all these rumors of modules that are going to be in the newer cars that will allow people to shut down your car remotely and stuff or not allow you to drive it basically if it thinks you're impaired in any way, stuff like that. Those are going to start those things, if assuming that they're real, those are going to start making newer cars less attractive to people. Because when you got to go in and rip out a bunch of electronics, assuming you even can, to make it what you want it to be, to make it your car after you bought it, that's a concern.
Yeah, and I was just reading, I think in Europe, the 27 Corvettes and the Cadillacs are going to have the Google, sort of system. And they didn't say subscription yet, but we know that's where Bara is talking and heading. And, her thought process is, we want to be like Apple. We want to sell the hardware and then we want to sell subscriptions because if you wait 6 years to buy a new car, we only have you at the point of sale and then we're done with you. And we don't want to be done. We want every business wants recurring revenue. And subscription models are recurring revenue. And every business is trying to figure out how they can do that. I mean, just not to bring up Tesla, but, their auto driving, they were trying to get 10 grand, then 5 grand. Now it's a subscription only service, $99 a month.
Yep.
So it's $1,200 a year. It's doable for people that don't have to fork out 5 or 10 grand in one lump sum. But he's also building that subscription where if you like it enough, they're going to get $1,200 every single year off of every subscriber that bought a Tesla that wants that feature, even if they're not buying another car for 5 or 6 years. Do the math on 5 times 1,200. That's a nice additional revenue stream that today does not exist.
I hate that you made that point, Joe, because that basically all but confirms that we're going to see that in a Corvette in no time, because that makes perfect sense. These cars nowadays, especially, they're coming out with I don't want to say bulletproof, but they're coming out very, very well built. And engine problems, transmission problems aren't really a big widespread thing. There's a good chance you keep your car for 10 plus years. And if that's the case, GM is not making any money off of you. So how can they, other than making you pay for features that you get now for free? Which, well, not free, but, at a one-time purchase.
Yeah, and look at Apple. I mean, Apple, half of Apple's revenue every year now is from subscriptions, whether it's the insurance when you drop your phone or it's the Apple Store of all the third parties that pay them royalties. 50% of Apple's revenues every year are non-hardware related sales.
That makes sense. Keith French says that he would want to be buried in his Z06. Let's see. Jay wants to enter tonight's giveaway. We actually don't have a giveaway for tonight, guys. I wanted to make this strictly a Corvette discussion, and I didn't want to interfere with the giveaway, but we'll be back with one next week, of course. Yeah, there is going to be a ZR1X Quail edition at the Invasion. That's cool. That's really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, this is true. So Texas Clay says, Justin, you know better than most of us. If you buy an exclusive car, there is hesitancy on driving the car. True? Yes, 100%. My C7 ZR1, I often don't drive that because of what could happen if I take it out of the garage. It's not something that I'm worried about that I would do. I'm worried about what other people could potentially do. And one accident, and that's it. The specialness of that car is literally gone. You can't get another one like that. I'm the only owner on it. I'm the first and only owner. I can't get that again. So my C8 Z06, however, as much as I like the car and love the car, if I get out there and I wreck it, other than the fact I can't get Seawolf Gray again, I could buy another brand new one the next day. So it is a little bit, there's something to think about anytime you take out a car that's special like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, Robert Brunn says, I have a 26 ZR1 with ZTK. You can't use the power unless you're an F1 driver. I don't doubt that. However, it would still be fun to try. That's my concern. Like, I know I'm not going to ever be able to use the power, but I would definitely do my best to try to do so. Vet says, per my GM source, C9 is delayed to 2032. I would not be surprised to see the C8 platform run until at least 2029, if not 2030. I feel like they're gonna end it on a nice round number. That's still 10 years worth of C8. And if in 2030 is the last year of C8 / the beginning of a C9, that's a nice round number to start the new generation. That's still 10 years is a long time for a generation like this to run, because I mean, a lot has changed since 2020 in advancements in technology for MagRide, aero, infotainment. I mean, a lot has changed. So the C9 is going to come out, and even though it might not tempt you out of your C8 Z06, it's going to have better electronics in it. It's that simple.
Yeah, and just think of where we were with AI in 2020,
right,
versus where we are today. That alone is a game changer. I think if it goes to 32, that's a problem.
I agree, and I honestly I can't imagine a marketing guy sitting down and saying, "Yeah, we're pushing this to 2032." The number 2030 is perfect for the launch of a new car. It's perfect. Yeah. If for no other reason, the number's perfect.
Yeah. The other thing, Justin, I want to just mention is something you and I were talking about, and I hope with AI, and I hope with the lesson of a 10-year run vehicle in this era, it's not the same as a 10-year run in previous generations, right, where the nature of instant gratification, instant results, and just the tolerance for people that want change is very different in the environment we all are in today. I mean, some of us are old enough where we took pictures, we mailed them away in an envelope and had to wait 2 weeks to get them back to find out 3/4 of them had red eye,
Right.
and they were a waste. Right now, you take a picture and it's like, hold on, let me take 17 more and make sure it's the one I want. Right. So having the same body style, for this long without, I mean, look at the 27 Stingray. Other than the wheels and the new refresh, you're hard pressed to pick that car out as being any different than a 20, base Stingray. And so I hope with the C9, the Tony Roma is emphatic in saying that if we're going to go 8-10 years, I want you engineers to build in, changes to the exterior at a minimum every 3 years and make the parts modular. And you can with AI and CAD CAM, where you can have the same chassis. And Mustang kind of does this with the hood and grill, not to bring them up, but the point is they don't change the car every 2 or 3 years, but there are parts on the car that differentiate it that look like it's almost a new total model when it's not. And what they do with the grills, I really like what they do with the ZR1 and ZR1X, but you shouldn't have to wait, that long to get a fender change or a rear quarter panel change. And it's inexplicable when you think about it, because you and I have had the same chat. A 67, 68, and 69 Camaro were totally different body styles in 3 years. No CAD CAM, no AI, basically cast molds to actually hammer out these cars, all human, no computers in the factories. And they built 230,000 each year of those 3 model years. And they all had different proportions and body styles. And here we are in 2020 to 27 with machines and CAD CAM and computers and, computers welding now, right? And doing caulking. And the body is the same 7 years later. I just hope that with the C9, they're forward thinking, that we as enthusiasts, we do want to see new changes intra generation and not have to wait for an entire 10 years to get a total refresh.
Yeah. Steven says what it tells you is that the C9 upper trims at minimum will be hybrid. There's no way to overcome that horsepower and they can't go backwards. I don't agree with that. I think there's ways. Number one, the engine that you see in the ZR1 that's producing 1,064 horsepower, the gas-powered engine, the thought process, the building, and everything that went into that happened years ago. So by the time we hit the C8 or C9 Z06 or C9 ZR1, the amount of technology available for another gas-powered engine that could produce 1,200, 1,300 horsepower at that point is greater. And not just that, to stay out of the hybrid game, they could of course produce those engines that have higher horsepower ratings, but even more than that, they could reduce weight of the car. So if they get the car down to a solid 3,000 pounds with an engine that says, let's say the C8 or C9 ZR1 is 1,150 horsepower and the C8 ZR1 was 1,064, but the car weighs 700 pounds less, it's going to perform a lot better with just 100 more horsepower. So it's not necessarily just a horsepower game. And I agree, though, they can't go backwards, but they don't have to go leaps and bounds forward either in horsepower numbers. It has to be a little bit more with improvements otherwise across the board. So the car weighs way less. It's maybe a shorter wheelbase. It has way better aero, maybe active aero. It's got a carbon tub. It's got this, it's got that, but it's 100 horsepower more. People are going to look at all the other stuff, all of those other numbers, especially if they're really producing a car that weighs less. It's not going to matter if it's hybrid or not. If it's only 100 horsepower more, but it's putting down a second less on quarter mile times, half a second to a full second less on 0 to 60 times. I don't know what to expect in 10, 15 years, but my point is it doesn't have to be hybrid. And honestly, in my experience, I would rather it wasn't, or at least an option. Because even if they offer the car as hybrid, you're going to get this time, and non-hybrid, you're going to get this time, but it's the same car otherwise, I'm choosing the non-hybrid every time. I love hybrid to an extent. I mean, especially in your car, Steven. It's one of those, it's the craziest things that I've ever experienced, but there's just something in my brain, it will not let me do it. I can't do it. So until I'm forced to the point where there is no other option, I will not have a hybrid car. I can't do it.
Yeah, I think the C9, they'll have ICE for sure, but I do think, I do agree with that. There will be absolutely hybrid versions, because if you go out to 2030, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, the technology in hybrids is going to be unbelievable in terms of the battery technology and the motors. And that torque is you can't get the torque and instant acceleration out of an ICE engine that you can with motors. I mean, there's no transmission, there's no drive shaft at all. The motors are on the wheels. There's no spark, there's no valves, there's no piston. The whole combustion process is totally eliminated. And there's so much waste in that process that electric motors, love them, hate them, they're just efficient as hell. And you fast forward 5 or 7 years, what they're going to be doing with those things. I don't see how you come out with a state-of-the-art, C9 line and say we're just going to have none of those in the lineup. I do agree that they'll have combustion only.
I don't think they're not going to have any. I mean, they already have 3 in the C8 lineup. There's no way that they're going to have 0 in the C9, but I would hope that they're not all hybrid is what I'm getting at. And
no, I get you.
Yeah, I mean, the hybrid stuff, you can't argue with the facts. I mean, I've driven the ZR1X, I've driven an E-Ray, I've driven these hybrid cars. You can't argue with what it does, but I can tell you what it doesn't do. And that's where my biggest concern comes in is I don't like what it doesn't do. I love what it does do. I'll be honest with you. You can't not love that. It's extra power. It's instant power. How could you not love that? I'm not a fan of what it doesn't do. And that's probably the best way for me to describe my love-hate relationship with that.
And maybe those doesn't do's will evolve, and I'm sure they will.
They definitely will.
Start to fade into the background, and then it's just going to be a matter of physics.
I mean, if you think about it, the E-Ray was GM's very first time playing with a hybrid setup on a Corvette. So, and I mean, honestly, for that being their very first time, they did a heck of a job. I mean, the car, it was amazing, but it just like everything, nothing's perfect. It has its shortcomings, and you either love it or you hate it. And it's for me, it's a love-hate relationship for sure. It's like I said, the Power Edition is awesome, but I'm not a fan of the way it handles itself on a track. Of course, GM did their due diligence with not marketing that car as a track car, but at the same time, a lot of people want to try to make it that. So that's what it is for me. But either way, the hybrid is definitely going to show its face in the C9. There's no way around that. Now, I doubt we're going to see it as a C9 Stingray. I doubt we'll see hybrid in the Stingray or the entry-level C9, but we are going to definitely see it in the lineup. There's no doubt. And honestly, we might even see a full electric. I mean, that CX that drives around, the one that's on the thumbnail of this video, that thing is fully electric. And it looks cool. And it's probably, I mean, I doubt that they built it to be a super performance car, but if it looked like that, I can guarantee you that thing is going to be like 2,000 plus horsepower.
Yeah. The Corvette is cooked if it's 2032. I think we're all saying that. I don't know what would cause such a delay when you think about the fact that, I mean, they have a brand new engine. Presumably that engine and variants are going to be in the C9. So you have a brand new engine. I don't know what would really be the big issue. They've been playing with all these different prototypes on the body and structure, but who knows?
Yeah. So, Smack said he better grab that hybrid obsessed domain. Yeah. That's what the HPO will stand for. I mean, I'm not gonna deny it that at some point in my life I'm probably gonna be a hybrid kind of guy. I mean, I'm gonna love those kind of cars, but as of right now, I don't. And like Joe said, the things that they don't do, that's all going to evolve. Everything's going to change because this is GM's really their first time playing with this stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, Darren Burnett, this is a great question. He says, how do you think the E-Ray would have done if GM only offered it in the Stingray and not a wide body until the Grand Sport variant? Honestly, if they offered a Stingray with or without the hybrid motor, I bet you it would have done better than the E-Ray as far as sales are concerned. And then based on those sales, GM then makes their mind up as to whether or not they want a Grand Sport X with that hybrid motor. I bet you that would have worked better.
Yeah, I think the E-Ray failure was just the marketing aspects were so confusing and poor.
I agree.
And people still, even at Carlisle, when the car came out, were still repeatedly asking the engineers, how does it plug in? And they
Right.
were just getting so upset because they answered the same question 3 times and tried to do it 3 different ways, which was emphatically yelling, you don't plug it in. It is not a plug-in car.
Yeah, and that was my concern with hybrid in general. Is that the average buyer of a Corvette doesn't understand that that doesn't mean full electric. So that was, of course, the E-Ray's biggest downfall, is that everybody just assumed it was full electric. I mean, I got questions up. I mean, as recent as like last week, I've been talked to about at car shows about how they don't like that electric car. And I'm like, what electric car? The E-Ray or the new one, the Grand Sport X. I don't like that they're electric. And I'm like, those aren't really electric. Like, but they don't even know.
Yeah, and then the other hybrids that are plug-in also confuse the issue, because that was
Right.
what other people were thinking. If they knew it wasn't fully electric, they were thinking it was, the hybrid variety where you do have to, there is a capability of plugging it in, and they thought, oh, that's what that one is.
Yep. Anthony George says the hybrid feature should have just been an option to the Stingray or Z06. Totally agree. And at one point, I thought that that's what the ZR1X was going to be. Was going to be just a ZR1, and you check the box that said ZR1X, and that was going to give you the hybrid ZR1. And that would have made a lot more sense. Is that it's the ZR1 plus a hybrid engine or hybrid motor in the front. That's it. That's the difference. That sounds like a performance package add-on to me. That does not sound like a totally new car. So that would be the way I would have done it. Rally Roofer says there's nothing exciting about hybrid. It sounds like a secondary choice. I don't completely disagree, but hybrid can be exciting if it's done right, if it's implemented correctly. However, if the right now, if the option is presented to me for a ZR1 or a ZR1X, I would take the ZR1 every day. The ZR1X, I wouldn't take it simply because of the hybrid. However, like Joe said, there is going to be advancements to this technology that are this is going to be the future. Like it or not, 100%. At some point in the future, you will be driving an all-electric Corvette. Now, whether you live long enough to see that, I don't know, but that will be the future. The future is definitely electric. There's no way around it.
Yeah, and what's exciting is, you've got a 1.68 0 to 60 in a C8 ZR1X. Just think how exciting the next 5 to 8 years are going to be in terms of what types of numbers, are going to be capable.
I mean, the fact that we're doing 1250 in even 1064 in a totally gas-powered engine, that by itself is insane. So 1250 out of a hybrid car, I mean, that same car with a totally electric drivetrain, you're probably 2,000 horsepower in a totally electric car. Now, I'm not saying I want that. Trust me, I do not want that. However, we are, like it or not, we're moving towards that. Did I read Seawolf's comment regarding OnStar? I did not see a comment about OnStar, but I'm going to try real quick to. Oh, he says, I love OnStar. If you're ever in a collision or incapacitated, they will send help. Well, when I had a problem with my transmission, I called OnStar for a tow truck, and they sent me the check engine light codes. I personally have zero love for OnStar or anything that offers. That would be something that I would be totally fine with them removing from the car as well. This was something we talked about actually not too long ago on the live as well, was GM charging additional money for having OnStar in the car. I said, why are you guys going to charge for that when 99.9% of the people that buy these cars don't even want it in there? You can't charge for something that I don't even want. So, yeah, they obviously decided not to do that, but I'm sure they probably added it into the price somewhere else without you knowing anyway. But if I could, I would remove it. If you could just easily remove the box, I'd take it out.
That's another, it's been around so long now, OnStar, and I just don't understand the price point that they try and get in a world where a lot of the features the cell phone is capable of or has replaced, including if you have an SOS car accident, you can set a feature in your phone to dial for help. And that was one of the premier things of OnStar was, God forbid I'm in an accident off the side of a road. And if they didn't charge $79.99 in some of these crazy monthly packages they have, and it was $9.99, I think it would sell a hell of a lot better, and they'd make up in volume what they don't get by having high prices. But I don't really know anybody I talk to that says I have OnStar for $79.99 a month. I just don't know who that is.
Yeah, Joe, it's funny hearing you say some of this stuff because it's like we've never even talked about this, and everything that you just said is literally exact words that I have said in the past. And it's like all you got to do with features like that is it has to be cheaper because at a cheaper price you get more customers. So like you're not losing money by going cheaper. Instead, you're probably gaining money and you're gaining subscriptions. So it never made sense to me how much that the OnStar is either, especially when the only feature of OnStar I ever wanted was the ability to unlock and remote start my car from my phone. Those are the only features I ever wanted. And even that was like, the last time I checked, it was like $15 or $18 a month. And it's like, I don't want it that bad. That I don't use it that often. I use it probably once a month. And you're going to charge me $20 every time I press a button on my phone. That doesn't make sense. No. However, if you gave me that feature for like $5 a month, now I'm thinking I might do it. You know what I mean?
Right. And the other thing that I never understood is the point of sale is after the purchase of the car. On delivery, they connect you to the operator and they give you a free trial, and then they ask you for your credit card, because if you forget to cancel it, they're going to at least get 1 or 2 months out of you before you figure it out. I mean, envision a world where you were at your dealer, you're buying an expensive car, and the salesman says for $9.99 a month, we have a product that can save your life. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, for $120 on top of what I've already paid, plus the sales tax, maybe you got me. But after I've left and I've just signed the big check or the wire or the loan, and now I've got to sit and listen to a dopey sales pitch from somebody who wants $79 a month, I'm not really in the mood at that point.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you're liking the conversation so far, let's smash that thumbs up button. We got well over 200 people in here watching. Hit the thumbs up. Let us know you're liking the content. These are conversations that Joe and I have on the phone on a regular basis, and we typically go through these conversations for about 20 minutes, and then we say, you know what, this would be a good idea to talk about on the live video. So this kind of stuff, let us know if you're liking it or not by hitting that thumbs up, because this is what will continue these kind of discussions. But
yeah, I haven't really heard anyone doing lately, at least, the C9 wrap like we're trying to do tonight, in terms of just all the gyrations that fellow owners of Corvettes, are going to be thinking about over the next 3 to 4 years. And it's interesting that the unofficial survey tonight is dovetailing, pretty much on the mark with the same things that not only you and I have talked about, but many of the people I've talked about, Z06 and up variants, don't, it's going to have to be aha moment when that, cover comes off the C9. And has to be that impulse of, I got to have it.
Now, one thing real quick, we talked about this a while ago now, but there was a leak at one point of the future cars coming from Chevy for Corvette specific, and they kept referring to a car that was coming later in the C8 lineup. And I want to say I think it was a 29, if I can recall correctly. They kept referring to it as a C8-2. And no one really understood what that meant. And I speculated that that might mean some sort of mid-year refresh, some sort of change in the bumpers, change in something that makes the car physically on the outside look different. And that was going to be ultimately the C9. And that was going to carry us through another 5 or 6 years of the C8. And really, that's not what I want. But that, if you have to do it, the only way you can do it at this point is you have to make that car look different on the outside. It has to look different. Yeah. And you better do something, which they've already started to do with the Stingray, with the performance. You have to keep it updated. Otherwise, it gets stale really quickly. So it is possible. I already know that the C9 is going to be an evolution of the C8. It's not going to be a radical change, like I said, from the C7 to the C8. Like it's not going to be like that. We're going to see that mostly the C8 with a couple things tweaked here and there. Could it literally just be another C8 with a refresh on it? I guess. I think that's a bad idea, but it could be. This is where we're at with it, guys. We wanted to talk tonight about kind of what it would take for you to get out of your current C8, and I think we did that pretty clearly at this point. I don't want to take up too much of the time. We're pushing heavily into 2 hours on the live here. I don't know how much time you guys really want to spend on here, but I think we're going to kind of wrap it up from here. I really appreciate all you guys coming on here and giving us your opinions, of course. It's always a good time. It's always a good discussion with the Corvette guys. A big thank you to Joe for spending his entire night with us as well. Really appreciate you coming on here, Joe.
My pleasure.
But I think that's going to be it. So, guys, if you could, please smash the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And as always,
stay obsessed.
Stay obsessed.
Oh,
Hey, Joe.
good ending.
All right, guys, we'll see you.